Prelaunch is not exactly a legal way. There are 13% vacant homes across cities in India.
There are a lot of builders
Yeah.
now where they make bits of pieces into the spaces and then give fractional ownership. Is that
Yes.
same as tokenization?
Not exactly.
Like even somebody with few lakhs of rupees can also be part of a multi-million dollar property.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of fractional owners who invested varying from 30 lakhs to 3 crores, but they always end up in not finding a new buyer for them. So we're trying to say that you have a secondary market here as well.
Exactly. Democratization of the real estate, which means smaller and medium scale asset owners will also get an opportunity. And as you mentioned,
And that's the whole idea of where stock markets came into play. Do you envision, like, India or any other country for that matter, is it going to have, just like we have Bombay Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange, are we going to have in future like real estate stock exchange where realtors can... Hello, my today's podcast is on real estate tokenization and things around it. And for that, I have very, very unique guest, founder of India's first ever tokenization platform, Mr. Tushar. So I'll say Dr. Tushar is here. Hi Tushar, welcome to my show. Very, very nice to have you here.
thanks CVK for having me. Look forward to our discussion today.
Awesome. So before we get started, can you take us through your whole journey? I know you are a civil engineer and you're a Harvard alumni, and then you did a lot of things in real estate in North America, Canada, and stuff like that. Before we go ahead, I would like to know your journey from a civil engineer to founder of one of the India's first real estate tokenization platform, PINVEST. Can you take me through your journey, please?
Sure, why not? So I started my career as a civil engineer undergrad and worked as a site engineer. Did my post graduation from NICMAR, National Institute of Construction Management and Research, in Delhi, where I learned a lot interacting with the bureaucrats and officials from various institutions, and that developed my vision to an extent. From there, I moved on to a public sector company, Balmer Lorry and Company Limited. It was in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. I executed projects for around 5 years across India. Moved on to Canada, rather immigrated to Canada. I worked with one of the largest real estate consulting firm, Altus Group, which is in costing, valuation, and taxation.
Okay.
I executed and monitored various projects from 56-story Marley Munro Ship building, which is an award-winning project
Oh,
in Toronto, Mississauga, and many other retirement REITs, shopping centers, museums, integrated townships, and residential and commercial projects. Meanwhile, I also
all that
focus-
in Canada.
absolutely in Toronto, Greater Toronto area.
Awesome.
So then I joined Schulich School of Business to focus on real estate, MBA in finance, and I did my postgraduate diploma there as well. And eventually, I moved on to New York-based company, hedge fund, Alden
Mhm.
Global Capital, and from there, I moved on to India, and I managed the funds investments across India, and eventually I started my journey as a entrepreneur. Meanwhile, during demonetization, while blockchain was already being discussed,
Uh-huh.
while uh, real estate was affected because of the issues faced by the sector, then I thought
It
about
was in COVID season you're talking about?
much before COVID season, but the
Uh-huh.
markets were not ready, the governments were not proactive, the customers were not ready, the technology was kind of half baked. So I was working on it, I was designing, and eventually I thought it's the right time to launch a real estate and infrastructure exchange, a first in the world.
Awesome. I know this is spanning 2.5 decades of experience in real estate. It's very hard to see somebody like you. Whenever I meet top realtor in India, And if I say I'm from Hyderabad, they ask me, "Do you know Dr. Tushar?" I think I'm having you here today. I'm very happy about that. And one more thing, when I meet any realtor and when I say Hyderabad, when your topic comes, they all talk about you are expert in foreign direct investments to India and you did thousands of acres of land parcels, all that. Do you mind taking us through your FDI secrets?
There's no secret in the sense, but like I was in New York, and I was asked if I would love to like to move to Hyderabad, and I said I would love to look at it because I'd been here as a tourist.
So you
But
moved to Hyderabad through your New York-based realtor company where they want
yes,
to do
the
something in
fund
India.
that I was working with, and before that I was working with REIT, so they understood that I understand the entire holistic business of real estate. So they gave me an opportunity to be the country head of the fund, and so I started it from the scratch when outer ring road in Hyderabad was still coming up. A lot of other opportunities were coming up when foreign multinationals were showing interest,
Got it.
and that's how it began. And kind of uh, started the business from scratch and took the team together and executed few projects. You acquired huge land banks across southern India, and that's where,
Awesome, awesome, Tushar.
yeah.
It's a diversified experience. So, I'll go to the theme of today's podcast, the real estate tokenization. I know this is a lot of buzz around this real estate tokenization globally. Some say France is already doing it, and then in India, we have been hearing a lot of news about tokenization. I also see about your company coming in Economic Times, Business Line, all that stuff. So, before we go ahead, can you please tell us what this tokenization, this entire buzzword, what this real estate tokenization all about?
Sure, why not? Tokens are basically smart contracts. Like they are fractions of any assets
Mm-hmm.
represented by electronic codes, and real estate tokenization specifically makes sense. So the tokenization could be done for many asset classes, or even, as you might have seen, NFTs for arts and music and other uh, things. But in real estate, it makes sense because real estate is one of the largest asset class which is opaque, and real estate is the largest asset class which makes sense to most of us. Real estate is the asset class which is in demand, and so tokenization makes sense for it. Tokenization implies basically fractionalization of real estate, and it's done on the blockchain
Now,
technology.
this is very, very technical. Can you decipher for us, in general terms, let's say, um, in general terms, what real estate tokenization about? Let's say I am a builder. Let's take an example. So I
Sure,
have a residential apartment with probably 100 flats. So how does tokenization matters to them?
sure. So it's basically about fractional real estate, uh, because most of us would love to invest in real estate, while not all of us can real estate invest basically. So we should provide an opportunity for that. So it's about fractionalization of real estate and then converting them into tokens which are represented in the blockchain. So they are having unique code, and they're around a 16 layer of security. So it makes it safer, and so it makes it much easier for a smaller investors to invest. So if you talk about some projects, so let us talk about commercial first, and then I'll come to the residential
Why
apartment
not? Yeah.
that you mentioned. uh, if a commercial building is owned by an asset owner, and he wants to exit, or he wants small investors to participate, he can divide that asset into unique tokens and sell it to the small investors, and that way small investors can participate and own those tokens and get capital gains or rental yields from those assets. Similarly, in residential assets, it's will also be done. It could be about owning the property, or it could be about owning the cash flows. And so each small investor, however small he may be, or she may be, they can invest, and that makes it a very inclusive product, considering what we have today as more of an opaque of
Mhm.
which is not accessible to most of us.
Okay. So I wanted to make it more simpler, at least for my understanding and people who are watching this show. Let's say, let's take up in Orbit Mall. Okay, it's a commercial building. So assume that I'm trying to build something like that. So how does tokenization come there? So how does it matter for a builder, and how it different for consumers or buyers who wanted to own some piece of stuff in the shopping mall example?
Sure, sure. That's a great example that you have taken. Because for any shopping center, there are multiple stores and there are multiple consumers as well as multiple users, as you would say. Uh, it's a great asset to own, first of all. So it's such a large asset for
Yeah,
large
millions of rupees, so 1,000,
uh,
2,000
yeah,
crores.
so probably it could go in hundreds of millions. And the fact is, a large asset owners develops it, and they invest, and then they rent it out or say lease it out to all the tenants. While small investors can just be consumers and just be part of it, while the retailers actually are paying the rents, or sometimes even they even give profit sharing in their business as well. So the asset owner, if he or they want to liquidate partly, so as of now, there are REITs. While if you want to have tokenized individual asset as well, it can be tokenized on our platform or similar platforms, and then smaller investors can participate. Say for example, it's 1,000 crore asset. It could be divided into not just 1,000 units. It could be divided into 10,000 or 100,000 or maybe a million units, and each token could be sold to a small investor, and it's based on a blockchain platform. So the blockchain is one of very
So
robust.
before we get there, I just want to clarify. Let's say you have a 1 lakh square feet of, say, office space. So now when you go to these builders, they sell by floor or something like that. So where if you wanted to be owner of that office space, you should buy minimum 20,000 square feet of stuff. So what you're saying is, so 1 million or 1 lakh square feet of office space can be owned by 1,000 people at a time, where you would only buy 100 square feet. Is that what you're trying to say?
Uh, yes and no, in the sense like I know fractional real estate. Many are
I know, I'm
selling.
trying to come to that point. There are a lot of builders
Yeah.
now where they make bits of pieces into the spaces and then gives fractional ownership. Is that same
Yes,
as tokenization?
not exactly, and to an extent, yes. The reason being, say, as you are talking about fractional, so I would go back to that example of a mall. Uh, if it's a million square feet mall, and while the asset owner wants to dilute the equity and sell it to small investors to raise funds, what they usually do is sell 1,000 square feet or 100 square feet or 500 square feet to different people, and then the asset owners, the new asset owners, would get some rental cash flows. The issue with that model is the small asset owner is not able to control that asset, and it becomes very difficult for them in case a tenant vacates that space or that particular space. So owning a particular demarcated space on a title document feels great, but the fact is, unless any asset is managed properly, which should be done by professionals, uh, at the end of the day, the cash flow matters, whether it's capital gains or rental yields. So tokenization could be done based on square feet, like each square feet could be sold to people, or it could be done based on making an equity dilution. And so we can have just like any company listed on a capital markets or stock exchanges, uh, any asset could be made as a SPV, special purpose vehicle, and the cash flows could be given to the investors, and the asset owners or the asset managers will have specific responsibility to manage the asset, while the small token owners can participate by investing small amounts while enjoying the benefits of the rental yields or capital gains whenever the strategic exit happens.
So you're saying like even somebody with few lakhs of rupees can also be part of a multi-million dollar property.
Absolutely. Like even if $1 billion asset could be owned by not just a few lakhs or few crores, even the goal for us is to get involved. People even invest in few thousand rupees, because that's where the goal is. We want to make it inclusive sector, while the sector is hungry and thirsty for capital. Because if we need to see the growth, which India is looking at, we need huge capital, while there are restrictions by the banks and the financial institutions for their own reasons. We need to open up the market in a safe and secure way, so that small investors feel safe, while the asset owners can raise the liquidity for their assets, and they are the experts who can manage the assets.
So, Dr. Tushar, I still have one question. So, there are a lot of builders. I don't want to take any names right now. So, where they build huge office space and they say, you can be partial owner of it. They sell, you can own 200 square feet of office space and then you get XYZ amount of rent. So, you probably invest 30 lakhs now, you get 100 square feet of land and then you earn 25,000 every month, and it keeps growing. After 3 years you get 10% increment. All that's happening in the market quite long time, almost from 10 years. I see that. I don't want to pick those names, but it's happening. So how different is that from tokenization?
Yeah, sure. So
So you're saying there's no technology involved, it's just that is the only difference?
now I'll tell you. See, the fact is fractionalization has been there, and tokenization is representing fractionalization of real estate on a blockchain technology enabled platform.
Okay.
So blockchain technology is one of the robust technology, and as I said, there are many security layers, and it cannot change. So what happens in normal circumstances is, we are still aware of the cases that have happened where fraudulent practices have happened, or say people have sold one asset to other, and on other hand they are fractionalized. So in blockchain, once you sell the token, nobody can change that.
Awesome.
So that makes it very secure, in the sense like, if any changes are done, it will be immediately reflected. So even if a regulator is there, asset owner is there, investor is there, or trader is there, they can buy and sell the tokens, but the basic nature of the asset cannot be
So
changed.
that's where your platforms like PINVEST come in, is it?
Exactly. So it makes it very secure because retail investors look at security, and that's why they want to own an asset. But not every investor, or not every circumstance you will have enough money to buy a new asset. So if there are enough assets anyhow which are necessary for the economy coming up, like schools, clinics, hospitals, colleges, or any other assets that, as you mentioned, malls and offices, we can definitely participate, and the profits can be shared,
Mhm.
instead of just buying residential properties. And sometimes these residential properties or land plots are dead assets sometimes. So it's better to invest in productive assets and gain out of it. And the most important part of this platform is about creating a secondary exchange, a secondary trading platform, because
Well, I think
many.
that's a wonderful point, because I know a lot of fractional owners who invested varying from 30 lakhs to 3 crores, but they always end up in not finding a new buyer for them. So you're trying to say that you have a secondary market here as well?
Exactly. So
Awesome,
a
awesome.
lot
Okay.
of fractional platforms are there, and they are offering good assets. Some of them are really lucrative, or looks lucrative, I would say. But I'm not sure how many platforms have really provided exits.
And I
So,
don't think they are platforms. It's only brands and they sell by
so
the
the
fractional
goal
ownership.
is
Yeah.
here is it's not just about selling something to the investors, or helping the developers. It's about creating an entire ecosystem for both the asset owners, the regulators, the investors, the traders, and new generation of potential investors that we see, that they can invest, trade, and retrade on our platform. So whoever is keen can acquire partly, fully, percentage wise. And then while the technology makes it so safe for, or redundant for anyone to
No, no, and
make
I
any
understand that
basics.
you're talking about blockchain. So obviously, all these are imperative. So, Tushar, just want to understand. Let's say there are 100 builders. We'll take up a city like Mumbai or Hyderabad. So
Sure.
10 builders wanted to tokenize their properties. So would you go to those 10 builders and give a white label of your platform to each of them? How does it work?
Oh, it doesn't work that way. It's a platform as a service, in the sense, uh, we would evaluate each asset and asset owner, and we plan to provide even credit rating for the developers by a third party. So there would be tokenization platforms in the world. We are not the first in that sense, but the fact is we are creating an independent exchange while providing third party valuation, third party inspection, and that makes it much safer and comfortable for the small
Oh,
investors.
that's interesting. So let's say I own 200 square feet of office space in a company like Raheja. Okay, so I bought it now. So tomorrow I wanted to sell it. So you say that somebody who buys through this exchange of any tokenization, will I get liquidity immediately?
The fact is, any developer or asset owner will also have its credit rating, and of course the asset will have its own credit rating. So if a large company is listing on our platform, they have the credentials because of their previous business experience and the assets that they have delivered and managed. So obviously their credit rating would be much better. But having said that, the platform has been created for democratization of the real estate, which means smaller and medium scale asset owners should also get an opportunity. And as you mentioned,
And that's the whole idea of where stock markets came into picture.
exactly. So that small companies or small asset owners should also be able to buy and sell and provide investment opportunities and exits to other asset owners and investors while having a very secure way of trading or doing transactions after KYC and Anti-Money and Laundering Act, and all
Mhm.
those aspects are taken care of.
So it is also good for builders and where they can get a lot of money from individual investors, where it's easy for them to buy their probably sell their stuff, right?
Sure. So exactly. So for developers, as a real estate developers, they have they keep on developing assets, and they of course for residential assets usually in India they sell. We do not have like multiple properties, unlike in US, Canada, UK, or developed markets like Australia and few other countries, where the entire apartment buildings are owned by companies and the rental cash flow, and they have REITs like REITs. Here in India, mostly commercial assets are uh,
Are
getting
owned by builders, yeah.
owned by the developers, and they are leased, and eventually they raise funds from institutions. While what we are trying to create is an investment opportunity for small investors as well as a liquidity platform for the asset owners, so that, say for example, a developer is developing an asset. He has a concept of developing an asset, and it's a great location, great asset probably as he imagines, and he starts a company at the face value of 10 rupees, and he goes to a friend and says, I have this idea and would you like to invest? And he says yes. So he invests at the value of at the premium of 20%, which is 12 rupees. They get all the approvals
Mhm.
for design and other aspects, and then eventually they get a RERA approval as well, and then they start selling it to people as well as the project progresses. Say there's a foundation level, then basements, and then um, parking and first floor, ground floor. The value of the stock or the value of the share of the SPV, special purpose vehicle, which owns the
Oh,
asset.
so then you're trying to say this, whatever pre-launch things are happening, are you going to make it official through these platforms?
Uh,
Because most of the pre-launch things are not very official these
I'm coming to
days.
that. So yes, the fact is, pre-launch is not exactly a legal
I know
way
they are
for
correct.
selling it to the customers, but anyhow, most of the pre-launch are uh, having investors, not exactly customers. So end users want who are first time buyers need basically assets where they want to live, while investors want to invest and exit. So as I was quoting about the example of a company being floated at 10 rupees share at the face value, while as we move ahead with the progress, the value of the stock goes on, and so with the value of the stock at each stage of the project goes up, and that's how the investors at various stages of the project would get a value. Say, and at the end of the project, say for example, if the stock value is rupees 40, while it was earlier face value, the person who started the project would get 4x.
No, no, I
While
totally get it. It's like stock exchange. So, do you envision, like, India or any other country for that matter? Is it going to have, just like we have Bombay Stock Exchange, National Stock Exchange? Are we going to have in future like real estate stock exchange where realtors can probably go to IPOs instead of pre-launches and then talk about the projects there and then get the revenues, not revenues, investments from there? Is it the future that you platforms like you're envisioning for?
yes, I'm coming to that. So great question actually. So we in real estate sector is one of the largest, and I would say the ratio of public market to private market of real estate is 33x.
Mhm.
On
Oh, that's
while
a huge number.
huge number, while it's inversely proportional in other assets like in equities, the public market is 12x of private equity, private business, while in debt it's more than 2.5 times, while in bullion it's much higher. So while real estate being the largest asset class has been mostly illiquid, and that's the reason we are trying to provide this platform. And if some people would argue that REITs have been there in the market
Oh yeah,
for
I wanted to come there. Why tokenization when you already have REITs?
yes,
So you
yes.
call real estate investment trust all that, right? So is it?
So exactly. So let me
Uh,
finish that if you don't
yeah,
mind.
sure.
So REITs have been there in market in global markets for last 63 years. In India, they have recently been launched for last 6 7 years. So REITs have been there, but they are hardly a percentage of or two of the entire global real estate valuation. Well, in India, we have only seen four of them, and there are investment trusts for infrastructures. So the fact is, as you mentioned about the stock exchanges, so I would love to cover that point. Is stock exchanges have been there, and REITs are getting listed. Even real estate developer companies have been there.
I know.
But the
Yeah.
fact is, real estate is one of the most stable asset class, and people invest. Most of the people invest in properties or real estate because they want to hedge against this volatility. While stock markets or capital markets have that volatility, it's an inherent part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when major event happens, like what happened recently in last year, couple of events like the Hindenburg report wiped off 20 lakh crores from Indian market within a week, or not even a week, while this
20 lakh crores.
yes, and even attack on Israel and Hamas, that wiped out even 20 lakh crores from Indian markets. Well,
My God.
none of the events were actually impacting the entire stock market. So what happens is, even if the assets are, say, for example, based in Hyderabad, the investor is in Mumbai, the tenant is from Bangalore, and the users are obviously locals, the business is doing fine. But
God.
the companies listed on this exchanges would have affected because of the volatility. So if we have a separate platform or separate exchange, that reduces the impact of these other shocks that capital markets are affected by. And so if we have a separate independent platform, that will definitely help and attract small conservative investors.
So, Dr. Tushar, so let's say a platform like PINVEST, as you said, there are few other platforms in India and outside India. So each platform will have their own set of customers and will build your own exchange stuff like that. Or is there any regularity that all exchanges has to be
So
unique and
again, a
stuff?
good question. So tokenization has been there in the market, blockchain technology has been there, but most of these startups, I would call, are focusing more on tokenization of individual assets and not looking from the point of view of exchange. Why? What is happening at Pinvest is we are trying to create a regulated real estate and infrastructure exchange, and we have been pursuing it with SEBI, Finance Ministry, and IFSCA, which is International Finance Service Center Authority, at GIFT City, which is Gujarat
Oh
International
yeah.
Finance Tech City. The reason being, we want to get a regulated platform. The reason being, a small investor would have a peace of mind investing in the regulated platform rather than just any tokenization platform which is available anywhere in the world, because technology is definitely safe, but a peace of mind is achieved by the trust of the regulator as well. So educated and erudite people, professionals, would understand blockchain technology and the benefits of that, but as a layman, people have that trust in the regulators, and that's the reason we are keen to work for improving the governance standards of our exchange. That will help us bring technology, and because of the technology the cost reduces while it is reaching out to all segments of the people.
So will this platform work as an individual independent entity, or like once you build the platform, so platform is ready now, your next goal is to onboard the builders there, and then you attract investors there, and you act as a middleman for these builders or the construction companies to get the funds from the outside investors. Is that how it works? Because
So
this looks very complex stuff. So
yeah,
at some point, I somehow feel like you're gonna the future is going to be, the government itself say there would be a stock exchange for real estate and anybody can invest and stuff like that. Is that how it's going to be?
yes, so to an extent, yes. The fact is, we are trying to create a public institution. It's not just about creating a platform for ourselves. What we are trying to provide is an independent, inclusive, transparent, 24 by 7 accessible platform for real estate which doesn't exist, and that too a regulated one. So the goal is to provide a platform, eventually make it an exchange. As we have received a preliminary approval for launching the product at a gift city or say our platform, and so we will be listing real estate assets which are stabilized cash flow, and some of the projects which would have uh, projects or say assets at different levels of the execution of the asset or say
Mhm.
project, and so that uh, depending on the risk appetite of the investor, they can invest. And as we know, risk reward benefits. So if you are investing right in the beginning of the asset or project, definitely the rewards are better. And so blockchain technology controls the transactions, while we would have other governance standards to onboard developers as well as asset owners, and not just asset owners and developers, but we would also be doing KYC of each investor. So before onboarding of asset owners and investors, we were doing KYC, as we know your
Yeah, yeah, yes,
customer.
yes, yeah.
So that would have all the details, and the regulators will be able to access each details. And we are proposed to the government to work on taxation of such assets, and a committee has been formed which is working on our recommendation, our proposal, and you might see some progress soon on that.
So what you say is it's all on the theory, so there's no platform who is already tokenizing assets, exchange is happening, it's happening nowhere anywhere
No,
in the
it's
world.
no. Tokenization assets are there, tokenization platforms are there, and we are ready with our platform. It's in working more. It's operational, and it's available. It's not a theory anymore. It used to be theory a few years
No, I
ago.
know it's in India, but globally, was that implemented somewhere else? I
Globally,
heard France is very active on
so
this,
globally there are independent individual tokenization
but there are no
platforms.
exchanges.
There is no exchange. If you do it, Google it, and many people did that for me. When I say real estate exchange, people are shocked to hear that. People are surprised. People are elated. But when they do a Google search and then come back, there's no one has done that, and why so? And I would say yes, because asset owners are kind of would dilute their equity with private equity or banks or other REITs. But the fact is, as I said, though it being a largest asset class, it doesn't have an exchange like bullion exchange is there. There is a commodities exchange, there's a diamond exchange, there is a SME exchange, there's a social exchange now, apart from the capital exchange, capital markets that we have. Even
Mhm.
foreign exchange is there. So the fact is, it's high time that we create an independent, trustworthy real estate tokenization platform and real estate exchange. Apart from that, infrastructure assets also needs this, as India needs $4.5 trillion to be raised for developing infrastructure if it wants to be a developed country, as the Prime Minister claims by 2047.
Okay. So see, an interesting thought I have. So like now the national highways are being going on the public-private partnership, and then you see that the companies benefit from the toll gate, and you have 20-25 years contract, and they try to benefit. Just like even the metros are being. So do you think that the tokenization also would come for in the future, say large bridges or national highways where
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great point that you made. So the fact is, right now, infrastructure InvITs like REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust or Income Trust, as they call it, are there. It's not that there are no financial instruments, but the fact
but
is,
when it comes to regulations, the government
yes.
itself.
So government needs huge funding, and Indian government, so Ministry of Finance has created National Asset Monetization Pipeline and National Bank for Financing Infrastructure Development. And there are further institutions. But the fact is, unless you tap external sources, and as I say, I would just like to talk further on this. Recently, Jan Dhan Yojana was launched by our Prime Minister to give banking facilities to poorest of the poor, so that zero deposit bank accounts. And most of the people ridiculed it, laughed at it, saying, they do not have any money left at the end of the day, what are they going to deposit? And the banks were also not ready for it, but they could accumulate
Some
2
10,000
lakh
crores in 1 month.
2 lakh crores in 1 year. It is
I see that news,
$25 billion.
Right.
So if the poorest of poor in the country could accumulate $25 billion, we Indians invest in fixed deposit about 20 lakh crores per annum. And in India, we have around cumulative of 188 lakh crores of fixed deposit.
Awesome.
So even if portion of this goes to
To
affordable
this.
housing development or infrastructure development, and beyond that, when I talk to a lot of pension funds globally, they are keen to invest in India, but they are afraid that they are not able to repatriate it easily. So if you create this instrument and these platforms, they will be able to invest as well. That will give a balanced platform for HNIs, retail investors,
Mhm.
and institutional investors, creating an entire ecosystem for launching an IPO or say launching tokenization of any asset. Apart from that, secondary transactions, and most importantly, this platform would allow tokenization of individual assets, mostly in REITs. There are portfolio of assets. So when you are investing in a REIT or say portfolio of assets, you are also investing in some of the inefficient assets managed by the real estate asset owner. So
Got
you
it,
are,
yeah.
as an investor, you're only keen on investing in most efficient assets. So here you will get that opportunity of investing and say transacting in each individual asset depending on your risk profile, your preferences, your timeline. And when a lot of people invest in say fractional or say any projects, they do invest with the expectation that they will get some double returns in 4 years, 5 years, or say less timeline. But the fact is, liquidity isn't there.
Got it.
This platform will provide that liquidity while ensuring that it's safe, secure, and that's why we are not just going to onboard any asset developer or any asset owners or any project. We will ensure that it goes through the proper due diligence process at minimal cost.
So you're saying safe, secure, all that. So it's all through
Absolutely.
blockchain. So
Absolutely.
assume that server crashes. Example. So there's billions of money invested through these different these properties, assets, all that. So let's say for some reason server crashes or some infrastructure issue happens, that all the ownership records erases.
No, not
Just
at
a
all.
weird question, but I wanted to
No,
know.
it's a really good question, because there are two things. We are doing it on private blockchain and one is on public blockchain. And what most of the platforms are doing are smart contracts or tokens. They are on the public blockchains and they are recorded. And while we are also planning to put our tokens for a regulated platform with a custodian. So a custodian also doesn't exist in India for blockchain technology tokens, but we are also working with the regulators on that. And so that way, investors will have their assets or tokens
Okay.
not with us but with the custodians, so they are much safer, unlike some of the events that have happened in the recent past in the capital markets, where the regulator had to take an action for the kind of leverage some of these brokers or custodians were pledging shares of others investors.
So now the old version of going to sub-register offices, they're giving your fingerprints, Aadhaar cards, and then paying that stamp duties. So that's the tradition that we follow. And then when you have a sale executed at sub-register office, you feel that as more authentic. And then before you buy the property, you check the EC and stuff. So are we still going to have that nature of registration, paying the stamp duty? And then I'm sure this is one of the major income for state revenue, as we discussed. So is that still going to be continuing, or this will actually change the way how the property sale by happens?
Absolutely, yes. So stamp duty is one part of like revenue for the state governments. Apart from that, it's about recording it in the record of rights, as we know. So it will continue, but and we will also be working on that. Rather, we are actually working on implementing blockchain on downstream or say upstream of the real estate transactions. And what we earlier discussed about tokenization is different, and about property ownership is different. So stamp duty registrations would continue, but beyond that, when we want to transact the property in a fractional mode, we are tokenizing it. But before bringing the property to the sale mode, or say a raw land, say an agricultural land, and eventually which say some zones of commercial lands, residential zones, that part of real estate transactions would also be eventually on blockchain. And we are working on government with that, and you will see some of the results pretty soon, uh, with new government being formed, and eventually within a year or so, a lot of change will come, because we in India have a presumptive title as on date, while most of our developed economies have definitive title.
So do you think that someone sitting in Hyderabad also can invest a property in New York through this global stock exchange kind of
Absolutely.
stuff?
On other way around as well, because people sitting in New York or Australia or anywhere else, they can invest through tokenization in fractional parts. So somebody owning in US could own, somebody owning in Australia or sitting in Australia could own part of the property here. Apart from that, an NRI is sitting there, and
Mhm.
we know we can do through power of attorney. But the fact is, through blockchain and some of the platforms that we are launching on Pinvest Exchange, you should be able to execute transactions and registrations while being away from the location of the property as well.
So do you envision this black money flow to the real estate is going to be eradicated? Because if you see, everybody knows, you have a stamp value of, let's say, XYZ thousand on paper, but there is a lot of black money goes into this picture. So do you think this would change the way how real estate going to function? Because you have very bad reputation for it, black money goes to it.
So, yes, India and say many parts of the world are notorious for it, and India, when we talk specifically, when we look at global investments, we need to get clean. The ease of doing business needs to be improved, and so Anti-Money Laundering Act and FATF, Financial Action Task Force. So these are the necessary steps which have been taken, and the global investors uh, kind of comply with that. And so eventually, as the private equity and other investors are investing in India, uh, if we have more and more transactions, returns on the properties will be higher. And so, as a public preference or a generic preference, the use of black money would definitely reduce. It is actually reducing now, and if you see or look at the properties which are being acquired, not just tokenization, but general properties being acquired by users or end users, most of them are new generation entrepreneurs or new generation professionals who have made good money through their jobs or
So
entrepreneurship.
can this also happen on land? Let's say now the lot of billionaires have thousands of acres, not in India at least because of the Land Ceiling Act and stuff like that. But there are a lot of companies who acquires thousands of acres of land and then they keep that as a syndicate. So with this entry of real estate tokenization, so probably the users can be part of that small bit of land that's going to be part of the new village or new township. Let's say talk about Gift City. It's all together came from the
Absolutely.
air and then it's a new entity that's going to be formed. So an end user sitting in somewhere in the rural part of India can buy a piece of land in the new upcoming city.
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So and a great point actually. So the fact is, say, what is happening has been like most of the large developers
Hmm.
or asset owners have been investing and then borrowing money and even raising private equity at eventual stage, and fundraising at the land acquisition stage has been difficult in India. So they have been primarily relying on UHNIs or ultra high net worth individuals or private equity. With this, eventually they should be able to raise fund or say crowdsource or crowdfunding from retail investors as well. Yes, some regulations are still being worked out. They will eventually happen because if there are safe and secure mechanisms where we take care of the retail investors, things should work out.
Awesome. So I still have one question: is this legal in India right now,
uh, it's a
or how
great,
adaptable it is? Forget about legality, but how
yes,
when it is going to be adaptable?
so it's a gray area as of now. It's not illegal or it's not legal, but that's the reason IFSCA, which is a fintech regulator in Gift City, has been formed by combination of SEBI, RBI, PFRDA, and IRDA, four financial regulators in India, to regulate the new technology and new innovations in the fintech sector. And so they are working on a lot of innovations. They are working on new ideas. They are working on new laws, and a lot of startups like us are working on it. And so I have myself put a white paper and a proposal to help the regulators form new laws, because we as an exchange or a platform would love to have a credible source of for the asset owners
Hmm.
and a credible platform for investors to invest. And we do not just worry or care about our startup valuation, but the fact is, it's about creating a public institution in the long run, and rather a global institution which should be able to raise funds for assets globally, like, say, what has
Hmm.
happened in Ukraine or Hamas. There is a lot of new development, and even infrastructure development in the US is happening after 50 years or overall. So they are also looking at funding, or they would be looking at new sources of funding. So if tokenization is permitted, then global investors should be able to invest through our exchange in global assets. So Indians investing abroad or global uh, citizens investing in India, vice versa, and domestic investors also investing within India. So that will make it very easy.
Okay.
And so with this ease of doing business, I would like to raise one more point: is India's ease of doing business ranking of World Bank has definitely improved a lot in the last few years. But New Zealand is one of the one first. Why is it first? Because the transactions for real estate are easiest in that country, or most of the developed economies have easier way of doing real estate transactions. So with
Okay.
creation of this platform, we also want to help government to improve the rank of ease of doing business, or say now it is called BEE, which is Business of Enabling Environment for World Bank, and that will attract a lot of FDI and FII in real estate investments in India.
See, in India, if the current market, if you see one thing that gets constant appreciation is real estate, whether you take a land or office space or home, in at least in India, considering not which not happens usually in Western, you see constant appreciation of your assets and properties in India. Now, if the increased accessibility of properties for somebody who sits here and then can invest anywhere in India, do you think that this real estate market is going to go beyond the affordability and that will become a boon for middle class and upper middle class people?
Not exactly. It's a good point again. So, real estate is a emotional asset for most of us, or globally. It's not just for India. So, real estate appreciation happens gradually, and over a period of time, it has definitely given better returns than other asset classes. And so, demand and supply definitely impacts any trading or any investment values. But the fact is, there is sometimes the sense will prevail, and the way it works is basically a lot of people are investing in dead assets. There are 13% vacant homes across cities in India, and there are a lot of plotting schemes which are kind of back to the way they were, like jungles or fresh fields. So the small investor which has brought a plot or an apartment, say for their next generation, are not exactly using it, and they're lying vacant while they are paying maintenance fees, they are paying property tax. If, say for example, through our platform we're able to invest in infrastructure assets which really needs capital, or say affordable housing,
Mm-hmm.
which is right now say around 20 million units, to by 2036 it's going to be 93 million units.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Yeah.
We need funding there, so why not to invest in the real assets which need capital rather than creating dead assets?
Got it. So I think I'll end up this with last question. So for realtors out there or for builders out there who want to tokenize their real estate and then get the early benefits of this technology and the whole ecosystem, is the market ready? Is the statutory bodies are ready? Are the platforms ready? Are tech companies like you are ready?
Yeah, so as someone said, technology or the markets precede the regulations. So yes, the technology is available. People understand. People are trading on their mobile phones in stock markets. They are doing transactions on mobile phones. They are understanding how transactions work. So people are getting smarter. Technologies are there, safety security mechanisms are there, and government understands that. And so, and again, I would like to reiterate here is blockchain is a technology while cryptocurrency is a product. So tokenization is not cryptocurrency, so let us not mistake with it. And tokenization is rather much safer form of owning an asset, and eventually it will can be adopted, and we are ready actually to tokenize assets across any region. And while the regulators are working on it, they have permitted us in the gift city to tokenize assets, global assets, while for the domestic markets also we are launching another platform.
Awesome, awesome. So it was a really great time with you, Tushar, understanding in and out of tokenization, good, bad, and regulatory side of it. So hope to see you. Hope to buy something in form of a stock through Pinvest
Yeah,
exchange.
absolutely. I would love uh, to get you as an investor. But yes, so we are not here just to promote ourselves, but the fact is, we are here to create awareness for creating a better marketplace, a liquid marketplace, a transparent marketplace, 24 by 7 accessible marketplace for all the stakeholders, be it a real estate developer, asset owner, investor, regulator, or small investors, and even the tax authorities, because they should be able to get direct data, and it will be transparent system for all involved, so that people are not haunted later on for the issues they face
Mhm.
in the current real estate system. Because people own, just the way people own gold, and they are more afraid or thinking about protecting the gold or asset. In tokenization they will be having a good sleep. They can have a nice sleep, because on blockchain it definitely is safe and secure, and we are further improving the governance standards as well.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks again for being part of this show. Wish you good luck.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to have a discussion with you.